Hello everyone. So today I'm going to be demonstrating an exciting new feature available in the Simple GIS Collaborate plugin, and it's an extension of the Simple GIS client product. And the new features in the Simple GIS Collaborate plugin now actually supports work order processing for shapefiles. And so what this is, it allows you to set up a process whereby if you have remote field editors or people scattered across remote geographic regions, you can set up a work order process that would allow you to generate work orders for individual field collectors or data editors. They could edit the data for a given layer or layers and then post that information back, and then a central either GIS administrator or administrator role as designated by your group could process those work orders, updating the master GIS data set while also reconciling any conflicts between work orders. And so that's one part of it. And then the other part of this demonstration is I'll be showing you how you can use an inexpensive file hosting, cloud hosting solution for your work order management and master GIS dataset management. And so to begin with, for today's demonstration, I have just a basic shapefile that I'm going to be using. It's called this properties.shape. And it's just a polygon shapefile, and I've actually created a custom attribute form for this layer using the custom form editor here, so that we've actually have linked in some photos that we'll be displaying along with some radio buttons and some other data for the attribute data. And so if I was to just look at the view feature data for the records in this property shapefile, and I was to click on one of these, I can see this is the data I'm collecting. I have a track ID, and then I have a zone for the property as well as evaluation. But I also have linked to some folders with photos for the property that show up here as well. And the work order management system can handle not only the feature edits to the features in the shapefile and the attribute data, but also any linked documents as well. And so we'll demonstrate that as we go through this demonstration as well. So if you've read anything about the work order processing in Simple GIS or have looked at the help files, essentially there's really three folders that you need to have set up in order for the work order process. One is, as you can see here in our help files, we'll read through this, is the master data folder. And this is the folder that is the master data set for your GIS data. And this is the data set that will be updated as work orders are processed. So this is the data set when you create a work order that data will be copied from. And also when you post work orders, this is the data set that will be updated by the work order. In addition, you would have a work order folder, and this folder holds all of the work orders that's created from the master data folder. So typically your master data folder, you'd want to protect the access to this folder to just those that you want to grant edit access to be able to edit this data. So typically if you had a GIS administrator or another person that's responsible for processing the work orders, they would have read and write access to this folder, while everyone else would just have read access to this folder. In the case of the work order folder, all the users would have read and write access to this folder. So as the administrator creates work orders, they get posted into this folder, and then as the field editors open the work orders, they get copied out of this folder and are opened in their individual sessions and edited. And then you would have one more folder called the posted work orders folder. And so what this folder is the folder that would hold all of the work orders once the field editor has opened a work order and has finished performing all of their edits in that work order. those edits would then be posted. That posted work order would be sitting in this post work orders folder. And so if you was to look here at the bottom, this is a very basic diagram of the work order process. So you have a master GIS data folder, the GIS administrator, or in some cases, if you wanted to, you could allow the field editor as well to create work orders from the master data set, which just simply takes a subset of the data based upon a selection either in their current map extent or by a box they can draw on the map. And it creates and puts that work order in the GIS work orders folder. The field editor then can open that work order, they modify the features, and then once done, they post this work order into this posted work orders folder here in the lower center part of this diagram. At this point, the GIS administrator or other role that you assign to this function would take individual work orders out of this posted work order folder and process them and reconcile any conflicts and update this master GIS data folder. And so that's kind of the high-level diagram of the process itself. So to begin with, as I mentioned, we need to go ahead and create 3 folders. So obviously, if you were using a file server, you could create these folders on your file server that users could connect to and get this information. Or if you wanted to use a file cloud hosting solution, you could set up this folder structure in that as well. And that's what I'll demonstrate here today. And for the purposes of my demonstration, I'll be using DropBox, but of course there are a lot of different file hosting solutions available to you. The thing that you just need to make sure of is whatever solution you decide to use is that you can easily share access to the folders, but that you can also control the access to the folders, such as whether you want to grant read-write access or just read or view access only. And so that's important. It's also good to have one that can sync folders from the cloud service to the local drive, especially for the field editors, as this allows them, once they have the work orders on their remote computer, they can work offline on those work orders. So to begin, if you've never used DropBox, of course, if you just go to dropbox.com, the first option you'll have is, if you don't have an account already, you can sign up for an account. Very easily, just enter in your name, your email, and then come up with a password for your account. And there is a free account available with DropBox. It is limited in some of the features and also some of the storage capacity, although the storage capacity is still pretty generous. And so you might just start with that if you've never used this and make sure it can fit your needs. But again, the free service is pretty generous with the storage, so it's a good starting place if you've never used it before. If you already have an account, then you can simply sign in. In this case, I do have an account, so I'm going to sign in by entering in my email address. And then I'll also enter in my password information. And it looks like I entered in my email. Yeah, I actually entered in my email wrong, so let me correct that real quick, and then let's sign in again. So ordinarily, if this is a new account, then obviously you wouldn't have any files already in your DropBox account. And there's also a wizard to help walk you through the different features and what have you. But what I'm going to focus on today is I really don't have nothing set up in my DropBox folder at this point in time. So what I'm going to do is create that folder structure that I outline in the help menu here, where we talked about a master data folder, and we had a work order folder and a posted work order folder. And so the way I would do that, I'm going to go back to my Dropbox application. And so as I click on the All Files here on the left-hand menu pane, and then I see I have another menu here on the right-hand side, and one of the menu options I have is to create a new folder. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder, and now I need to give it a name for the folder. So at this point in time, what I would do is I'm just going to call this, and you could call it whatever you want to, but just for clarity, I'm going to call this my master data folder. And at this point, I could tell it who I want it to have access to this folder. I could select if it was only for me or if I wanted only specific people to have access to this folder. And so if I was going to share this folder with a team of people, I would go ahead and click this radio button for specific people. And as I click next, I'm going to give it a minute here. And at this point in time, I just need to enter in the email addresses for those users who I want to have access to this folder. And so ideally, these users would have their own Dropbox account, which again, they could just sign up for a free account and get started with that. And then they can easily then link and view this folder that I'm going to share with them. So I could enter in those emails for those individuals I want to share this folder with. And here on the right hand side, I see a drop down, and I can actually select the rights that I want to allow that person to have. So for instance, for the master data, if I was sharing this with other individuals, I'd want to make sure that I set their access to only can view, because I want to protect who can actually edit the data in this folder. So in this case, for my other users, I would just give them view only access to this folder. And then I would just continue to add these email addresses, and then once done, click the share to share this folder with those individuals. So let me go ahead and create, because I don't really have a list of email addresses I'm going to share this with. So let me just go ahead and just create the folder from scratch. And right now I'm just going to select for only me to have access to this folder. So it created the folder in my Dropbox account, but I see I have no files or data in this folder. So at this point in time, I just need to upload my shapefile that I'm wanting to put in this master data set. So for the purposes of this demo, I only have this property shapefile, but you might have multiple shapefiles that you're maintaining and editing. And you would just need to upload all of those into that master data folder. If I was to double click on this property, I can see that this shapefile is actually located in my public documents, and I have a demo folder called work order demo, a subfolder underneath that, and that's where the shapefile is located. So that's what I need to upload to my Dropbox account. So if I go back to my Dropbox in my Chrome browser, and what I'm going to do now is just on the right hand side again, I see I have menu options. I'm going to select this upload files. And so I just navigate, which I'm already there, to the folder that contains the shapefiles I'm wanting to upload, which is this public documents demo, work order demo. And here's my shapefile here and its associated support files. In addition, I have a couple of folders in here that I was using the link to in those features for the photos. So I have this T3156, and I'll open that up. I see I have this photo in it, as well as this T6923. So I just need to select all of this that I want to upload. And so in this case, it's going to be everything underneath this work order demo folder. And so I'll select it and click open. At this point in time, I see that I have a status at the bottom giving me the status of the upload and the file that is uploading. And so at this point, it's done. It uploaded 8 files. And actually, I think I need to go back and do the folders separately. Yes, so it only grabbed my shapefile. It didn't grab the contents of the folders. So what I'm going to do now is, while I'm underneath my master data folder in Dropbox, instead of selecting upload files, I'm going to select upload folder. And if I click this menu option, I'm going to select this folder T3156, upload it. And now it's just giving me a prompt up here at the top of my browser saying this will upload all files from this folder. Only do this if you trust the site. And I do, since it is my folder, so I'm going to select upload. And I see that it loaded this folder underneath my master data. And now I'm going to do one more. I'm going to uncheck all of these files here. And now on my menu on the right hand side, I'm going to select upload folder once more. Go to my work order demo, and now I'm going to upload this folder, T-6923. Again, it's asking me, do I trust this? And I say yes. So upload. And now it uploads that folder and the contents of those folders as well. So if I was to open these subfolders, I see that it has the photo included. So let me go back to all files. And so that's my master data folder, and that's been created. Again, at this point, I could change who I share this folder with. I can come, as you see here, along this row for master data, there's this button called share. If I click on the drop down, I can see that I can share with Dropbox. And again, at this point in time, I could enter in individual email addresses for the individuals I wanted to share this folder with, as well as selecting their permissions, whether they can edit the contents in the folder or simply have view-only access. And again, typically what I'd want to do is limit the other users to have only view-only access to the master data folder. So at this point, going back to my help file, I've created here under my work order folder setup my master data folder. Now I need to create a folder for the work order folder and for the posted work orders. So I'm going to jump back to my browser into Dropbox, and now I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder, coming back to the menu on the right hand side of my browser and say new folder, and I'm just going to call this one work orders. And again, I could share this now at this point by selecting specific people and entering in their email addresses. I'm just going to leave it selected to me for now and click create. And it's created the new work order folder, and of course it is currently empty. So I'm going to come back here on the left hand side. I'm going to select all files again, just so I can see all the files underneath the root of my Dropbox, which is my master data folder, and now I have this work order folders. And now I can share this folder with additional users by clicking on the share button, entering in their email addresses. And in this case, I would want the users to be able to edit the contents in this folder. So they would need to be able to view and edit, because as you'll see in a minute as we go through the work order process, as they open work orders, it will delete the work order out of this work order folder and store it and open it on their local machine for the field editors. And so they need to have edit access to be able to open and then delete the work order out of this folder. And now one more folder we need to create. I'm going to come back to my new folder, and this one I'm going to call posted work orders. And so it's now created that folder. Of course, it's empty. I'm going to back out underneath the root of Dropbox. I could click on all files here on the left hand side, or I could also just simply come at the top of my browser and just back on the path, just click on the Dropbox root, and this brings me back to the root folder in my Dropbox account. And here are the 3 folders I've created. Again, I need to set up the access to this folder for my other users by clicking on the share button, entering in the email addresses for those users I want to share this folder with, and give them edit privileges to this folder as well, since they'll be posting their work orders as they finish editing the work orders into this folder. So one of the things that comes when you create your Dropbox account is actually the Dropbox application as well. And what this application allows you to do is to link to your Dropbox account so that it can synchronize folders and files to your local hard drive. And this is great for being able to take data offline and work on it offline when you may not have internet connectivity. And so that's the other thing I would recommend. And so essentially, when you sign up for your Dropbox account, you'll have an option to download the Dropbox application. And it's a simple download, and you install the application. And after installing it, you'll come up to a dialog box such as this, prompting you to set up your Dropbox account on your local machine. And so what you would do is sign in with your email address and your password. And so once you have signed in, of course, your Dropbox is installed. And so now you just go through the screen prompts to complete setting up your local Dropbox installation. So I'm going to click Next at this point. I'm going to give it a second for the Dropbox app to come back. And so it is preparing its setup. And so at this point in time, you choose how to sync your files. You can make files local, which means it stores the files on your hard drive. And what it does, again, the advantage is it allows you to access the data offline. And so that's what I would recommend. Or you could choose to make the files online only. But again, I think the benefits of making the files local outweigh the additional hard drive space that you might save. So I'm going to select Make Files Local. And so then I'll continue with Basic, since that's just the free application I have. It's going to ask you, one of the things you can do is set it so that it backs up your PC to your Dropbox folder. Of course, with the free version, you may not have enough storage capacity in your Dropbox account to back up your PC. But in this case, I'm not going to use the backup feature. I just want to use this for my work order GIS database setup. So I'm going to uncheck these boxes, or I could just click the skip button here. And so yes, it's going to prompt me continue without backing up PC, and that is in fact what I want to do. So what I'm going to do is I'll just click Continue to Dropbox. It has now created my Dropbox folder on my hard drive. And I notice I have this Dropbox icon, and so that's what I'm seeing here. And if I look in this folder, I see that I have these 3 folders that I created. I have my master data, which has the shapefile that I loaded into it, as well as the 2 subfolders with the photos in those subfolders. And then I have my posted work orders and my work orders folder. And so that's it. My Dropbox is set up. So what I'm going to do now, and if I look at my Dropbox, if I notice if I come down here to my tray in my Windows system and show the hidden icons, I see I have this Dropbox folder in my tray, and if I hover over it, it's telling me my Dropbox is up to date, which means it has synced all of the files from the cloud to my local folder. And the neat thing is as I process data and update the master data here in this shapefile from work orders, if I have internet connectivity, it will then sync all of these changes back up to the cloud as well, and vice versa. So it's a good way of keeping data synced up to the cloud, but still having it available to use offline. And so in this case, and that's why it's also important that we limit the access to this master data, because if multiple users are able to edit this folder, you can basically get what is called conflicts in Dropbox, which means because it is a two-way sync from the cloud to the hard drive and then from the hard drive back to the cloud, if two users are editing this data simultaneously, as it takes whatever version is of the data you have on your hard drive and updates it and tries to sync that back to the cloud, if someone else has already synced up updates that they did, it recognizes that the version that you're operating on your hard drive may differ from the version that's on the cloud, and therefore it doesn't know how to reconcile the two. So this work order process gets around that by having a single user responsible for processing the work orders that updates the master data that then gets synced to the cloud. And so then you wouldn't run into that issue. And so to begin with, now that I have my folder set up, I'll demonstrate the work order process. So I'm going to come back to my simple GIS, and I'm going to remove this property shapefile and add the one that we just put in our master data, since that is now our master data that we'll be using to synchronize everything across. So I'm going to remove this shapefile. I'm going to come up here to my Add Data tool, and I'm going to go to my Dropbox folder. So I'm going to go, the way I navigate that to it on the Add Layers, the Dropbox folder is normally located under your Users folder, under your username, went 1, 2, 4, and underneath your username there should be a Dropbox folder. And if you click on that, you would see the folders that we created, and here's the master data folder, and now here's my shapefile that we copied into that folder. So I'll double click to add this to my map. Here is my layer properties, which I can change if I need to, and all I'm going to change is on my layer name. I'm just going to take the file extension off for the layer name and click apply, and I'll close this dialog box, and there's my shapefile in the master data folder. And if I look at the attribute data using the View Feature Data tool, and I click on it, I can see that yes, it does have all the attribute data, including the link photos, since we copied everything over. So in this scenario, let's assume that I'm the administrator. I'm going to create a couple of work orders for some users to go edit, and maybe ordinarily this probably wouldn't happen, but for the sake of this demonstration, I just want to demonstrate the functionality. But what you would do is you create work orders, you select the area that you're wanting to create the work order from, and sometimes those areas may overlap geographically, and so there is a possibility you could have multiple users editing the same feature. In that case, as we process the work orders, there is a conflict resolution tool to help reconcile those conflicts, which I'll demonstrate here in a minute. But to begin with, to create a new work order, what I'm going to do is come to my simple GIS Collaborate menu, and on this pull down menu I'm going to come down to Create Work Order. As I select this option, a new dialog box will appear, and in this dialog box there will be a list box that lists all shapefile layers in your current map. So in this case, I only have one shapefile layer, so that's the only one that shows up. But if I had multiple layers loaded, they would show up. And for the work order, I would just select the layers that I want to include in the work order. And I could have one, or I could have multiple layers included in a single work order. And so what this is layers that I want to have the users go out and edit. So in this case, again, I only have the single layer, so I select it by clicking in its box next to its name, so it gets the check mark in the box. And then, if you notice, I can select features based upon a box drawn on the map or by the current map extent. If I select a box drawn on the map, I click the DropBox button, and I just simply click and drag to draw a rectangle on my map. As I see, I get a blue hatch pattern for the area I've just selected. And now all I need to do is click this Generate Work Order. And what this will do is create a work order, and it will select all features out of the layers I've selected here that intersect this box that I've drawn. So if I click Generate Work Order, I'm going to get a File Save dialog box prompting me for the location to create and save the work order file name, and I need to give it a name for the work order as well. So what I need to do here is make sure I navigate to my work orders folder that I created. So again, my work order folder was in my DropBox account. So here's my DropBox folder, and this is the work orders folder that we created. And so that's where I want to save the work orders at. And so in this case now, I'm going to give a file name for the work order. And so I'm just going to call this demo work order 1. And I'll click Save. And it starts processing the work order, and then once done, my dialog box disappears and that work order has been created. And now if I can come back and I could create a separate work order, and so I'm going to select Create Work Order, and again I'm going to select my Properties layer, but in this case I'm going to select Current Map Extent. And so what this means is it'll select any features out of the layers selected here that intersect the extent of my current display in my map. And so if I click on that button, I don't have to draw a box or anything. It's just going to select whatever features enter my current display, and I'm going to select Generate Work Order. And again, it's going to give me a file selection dialog box. Here's the first work order I had just created, the demo work order 1. And for this one, I'm going to create a demo work order 2. Save that. And then once done, once again, the dialog box disappears. And so in this case, if I was a field user, you could have a simple GIS client project, and you could have the master data loaded in the project if you so desire, just as a view reference to view the master data. Or you could remove the master data because you're going to be adding in the work orders that's going to have some of that same data in it as well. So for clarity in this case, I'm going to go ahead and remove, well, I'll just turn it off. I think that might be best just for clarity. I'll turn off. So again, this properties is the master data set for my GIS data. So if I was a field user in the field and I was ready to start editing data, what I would do at this point is underneath my Simple GIS Collaborate menu, click on it, and now I'm going to select Manage Work Orders. And as I do so, I have a new dialog box that appears, and I have this main heading up here called Manage Work Orders. Double click to open, and a list box underneath. And this is work orders that's already been unpacked and opened on my machine, and in this case I don't have any work orders. Now underneath this box I see I have unpackaged work orders. And so what this is, when you create a work order, it actually takes all the layers selected and the features for those layers based upon your selection, and it creates a single compressed file. And when you open a work order, it has to take that file and basically uncompress it or unpack it and all of the layers in that file. So before I can open a work order, what I'm going to do is I have this section towards the bottom of the dialog box called Unpackaged Work Orders. And I have a combo box where I can select different drives on my machine and the folder that I want to look in. So again, I want to make sure that this is pointed to my work orders folder that we created. And when I do that, and I've done it successfully, and there are work orders in that folder, I would see them here in this list box, kind of on the right-hand side of where I've selected the folder. And so if I look, I see these are the two work orders I just created, the demo work order 1, demo work order 2. And if I notice the verbiage up above this list box, it says select work order to unpackage and open, double click on work order package to unpack and open. So essentially, if I was a field user and I wanted to open up this work order, all I'd have to do is double click on this work order. At this point in time, if you notice, I have a new layer that's been added to my map. If you look here in my table of contents on the left hand side, and it's a group layer called Demo Work Order 1. That's the work order that this represents. And then underneath this layer, I actually have another layer that's a shapefile that has the Demo Work Order 1, and then it has appended to it the layer name, which in my case is properties. And so that is in that work order. And if I had multiple layers in that same work order, they would be listed here underneath this main work order in this group layer. In addition, I see that it removed the Demo Work Order 1 package here out of my dialog box, and it added a Demo Work Order 1 up here, which indicates that this work order has been unpacked and opened on my machine. And so this work order is residing on my machine right now. So at this point, I could dismiss this dialog box. And if I notice, this is the only feature I see, because if you remember when I drew my box to select the feature, I only drew a box around this single feature in the master data. So if I turn this off real quick on the work order and turn on my master data, remember I have these two properties. And when I created the work order, I just drew a box around this feature here. And so that's all that got copied out into this work order. So at this point in time, you could edit this just like you do normal layer editing in Simple GIS. So you would right click on the layer, toggle editing on. I could edit the attribute data by using the view feature data, clicking on this feature. Let's say I wanted to change the valuation value to 900K. I could even edit the vertexes for this feature if I wanted to change actually some of the geometry of the feature. I could do that as well. And just as an example, I'll just make a couple of edits such as this. And in addition to that, I could even add new features. So if I had a new feature I wanted to add, let's say I had another property here, and I'm just going to draw a box essentially and say this is another property, and I'm going to call this track. I'll just call it T-Demo for this purpose. And let's say it's a agricultural zone, and let's give its valuation at 1 million. And then maybe I'll even link a new photo that happens to be on my machine. So I could do that as well. So let's go to, let's see, not there, under public. Let me go to demo. Photos, let's try that, yeah. So I had a photo here underneath this folder, and I'll just select it and click OK. And now I have this new property I've added. Now, if I was the editor and I was through with these edits, what I would want to do is now under Simple GIS Collaborate, I'm going to come back to my Manage Work Orders. And now I'm going to select this work order that I have opened on my machine. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be added to the map at this particular time. It just means that I have opened this work order at some point in time and it's residing local on my machine. And if I'm done with all of the edits, I simply select it and I click on this button called Post Work Order. And so again, when I do that, I get this navigation dialog box where I can navigate to the particular drive and folder location that we created for our posted work orders. And now I'm going to click Apply. And now I see that that work order is gone because it has now been removed off my local machine and it has been posted into the posted work orders folder, awaiting for the GIS administrator to process that work order. So now let's say I'm user 2. This, again, I'm a separate field user, and I'm going to open up the second work order we created. So again, I'm going to go under Simple GIS Collaborate. I'm going to go to Manage Work Orders, and now I will open up this Demo 2 work order. So I'll double click on it to unpack it and open it up on my current machine, which is, after I do that, I notice it removes it from here, places it up here, and also adds the layer to my map. So at this point in time, I'm going to edit this layer. Again, just right click, doing our normal edit features, and I'm just going to edit the attribute data. So I'll edit this feature here, and it's at 1.905 million. So I'm going to make it even 1.9 million for its valuation. And remember, this feature up above here, when I created this work order, I did it by the map extent, and so both of these features are visible in my current map extent, so they got added to this work order. And remember, user 1, that work order that we created was done by a selection box, which only selected this feature. But the point being, this feature right here, if you can see where my mouse is circling, was included in both work orders. And so user 1 has edited this feature and have already posted their work order. And now for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to assume user 2 is going to come in behind and edit the same feature. And let's say they're going to change the valuation to 850,000 and click OK. And what you're going to see as we process these work orders is the conflict resolution that takes place, because it's going to recognize that user 1 has already edited this feature and user 2 is now trying to overwrite his edits since these work orders were created. So now if I'm done with this, I'm going to come back to Simple GIS Collaborate menu, go to my Manage Work Orders. I'm going to select my demo work order 2, which is the work order I currently have open, and say Post. And I'm going to put this again in the Posted Work Orders folder. Click Apply. And so that has now removed the work order off my local machine. It's removed it off of my map, and it's awaiting processing by the GIS administrator. So again, I'm not shifting between applications, but just, imagine that these were all different users running different instances of Simple GIS on their own machines. And so now I'm switching back and assuming that I am the GIS administrator. Here's my master data. Again, it's pointing to my master data folder. And remember, this is the original data, the evaluation that we had on this. Remember, we had modified it a couple of different times in this particular case. And then we also modified this. And in addition, in the first work order, we also added a new property. So at this point in time, if I'm the administrator, at any point in time, I can come to the Simple GIS Collaborate menu and select the Process Work Order menu. And this will show me, I just need to navigate here. If I'm looking at my dialog, I'm just going to kind of move it off to the side here so that we can see the changes as they take place. But again, similar to the other dialog boxes, I have a drop down here where I can navigate to the drive, and here's my folder navigation. And I just need to make sure I navigate to the folder where the posted work orders are going to. So I'm navigated to my posted work orders folder. And in fact, I do see that I have 2 work orders that's been posted. Here's the demo work order 1. And if you notice, the file extension has changed to PSTD work order, indicating that this is a posted work order. And then I also have the demo work order 2. And so I'm going to select the first work order that we have in this list here, and I want to click on the process work order button. As I do that, I'll get a status at the bottom here telling me the process, and it's already through and said it's finished work order demo 1, processing that work order. If I notice I had no conflicts, because if I had any conflicts they would show here in the center of the screen. And if I looked on my map, I noticed that this property area here is geometry changed based on the edits we did in that first work order. In addition, if I was to look at the attribute data for this feature, I see that the valuation changed from 815,000 to 900,000. And in addition, I have a new property located over here that if I click on it, and I see that this is the T demo track that I added, agriculture, valuation of 1 million, and even the linked photo that we included in that work order. So again, real important. Not only is it the feature geometry and the attribute data, but if you are using the custom data form and are using it to link any documents, this could be Excel documents, this could be PDF files, or photos for that matter, all of that data would be transferred off of that remote user's machine in the work order, and then it would be used to update the master data. So all of this is maintained, and you have this nice database that's maintained with all of these linked documents. So again, so that was work order 1 we just processed. Now we're going to process demo work order 2. Excuse me. And if you remember, work order 1, of course, we modified this feature here, but we also edited the attribute data in this feature as well. And so we should see a conflict arise as we process this work order. So I'm going to select it, and I'm going to click Process Work Order. Again, I'll get a status at the bottom of the dialog box here. And now it has finished telling me that it has finished processing work order 2. And so, as expected, I see here in the conflicts, I do have one conflict, and it's telling me that feature ID, this is a unique feature ID assigned to each feature. This feature was edited by James, which happens to be me in this case, after the work order was created. And so we do have this edit conflict. We have to decide how to resolve this. And if you notice, it looked like the geometry changed on our map, but actually what happened is, because there is a conflict, it added, if you notice in your table of contents here, it added this work order to your map on top of the master data. And so what you're seeing is the geometry of the work order feature. And if I was to turn this off, you can see versus the geometry of the master data. So we can see that there was a change there. And what I could do to make this easier to view, I could just change the symbol for my work order. If I wanted to, I could just double click on this, come to my legend, and just change this maybe to a hatch pattern to make it easier to view the differences. So in this case, there were 2 features in this work order because at the time when we checked it out, this feature didn't exist because this was added in work order 1, but I had these 2 original features, and I didn't edit any geometry, I just edited the attribute data. But work order 1 actually changed the geometry of this feature. So now that I have this conflict, one of the things I can do is, if I select the conflict, I can click on Compare Versions, this button down here. So based on whatever conflict I select in my table here, if I had multiple conflicts, I just click on a row to select that particular conflict, and I can select Compare Versions. When I do, it's going to zoom to this feature, and actually I zoomed in a little close, so I'm going to zoom out some on my map. And so what this is showing is these are the geometries that's in conflict, but also if I look here, it expanded this area and it's giving me the attribute data. And so what it does is, if you notice the column headings, this is the layer source. So for this row, this is the work order and this is the field. So the work order, and let me just scroll up to the top here. and we'll stop here. So the layer source here on row 1, this is the master data set in the track ID field, and its field value is T6923. For the work order layer, so again, layer source here, in this case it's work order, same field, track ID, and its field value matches, it's the same. And so I could go down this list and look and compare, and I would see where the differences are. So in this case, I can see for the valuation field in the master data set, the valuation is 900,000, which was changed by the user in work order 1. And in my work order 2, I had set the valuation at 850,000. So that's where the conflict is, besides the geometry conflict as well. And so there's also a change in the attribute data. And so this just gives you an idea of what the conflict is. So at this point in time, you could, if you'd like to resolve this, you could accept an overwrite. So what that means is, for this particular conflict, I could overwrite the master data with the current data in my work order, or I could discard or ignore this revision in my work order and keep the data as it is in the master data by clicking this Keep Original. So again, if I was to click Keep Original, I would see that it actually, actually accidentally removed my layer. Let me add my properties back in. I would see that it keeps my original geometry, and it also, if I was to view the feature data using the View Feature Data tool and click on it, it kept the valuation at 900,000, which was the original. So again, in this case, I said keep the original, so that's what it kept for that particular work order. And so that's it. I know that was a lot of material to cover, but again, I think this is a pretty exciting tool, providing a way to really be able to manage your GIS data in a simple format, using remote users to collect field data and to manage all of those edits coming back in. And so hopefully this was useful to you. And again, hopefully the other thing I really wanted to demonstrate is how you can use a very inexpensive cloud file hosting solution to manage your GIS data as well against a team that may be geographically dispersed. So again, I think this provides a solution for that as well that is pretty inexpensive and fairly easy to set up. If you'd like more information, as always though, please visit our website. And again, that website is simplegissoftware.com. Thank you. Have a good day.